Now, at this point, you've probably already heard the news. Very soon, Logic is gonna be a newly retired rapper. We got this news the other day, and of course, I made a video on that. One thing I didn't really talk about in my video though is whether or not he's actually gonna retire. What do I really think about that? This is actually a real conversation, and you'll know why in just a second. So yeah. Let's talk about it. Now, No Pressure by Logic is just around the corner. It'll serve as Logic's last project before he kicks his feet up and starts sipping on margaritas at the beach. Actually, not really. Logic is obviously an extremely ambitious guy, which means him retiring from rapping just opens up the door for other ventures. For example, back in 2018, it was announced that he was gonna star in a movie called Everything Must Go. It's still not out, which means it's still in the works, but Logic is actually working as one of the writers on that film. He appeared on The Last of Us video game that came out back in June. He also has his own book out, Supermarket. I'm telling you all this to let you know that him retiring means other avenues will most likely be explored in full effect. But is he actually retiring though? First of all, let's talk about the fact that life is long. Logic is only 30 years old. He's been rapping since he was in his teens, which means, this is something he loves doing. Someone like him retiring is a big deal. And it also means that there's no going back if he's determined to stay retired. His decision to retire was, obviously, as much as we know, strictly motivated by him wanting to be a great father and wanting to be there for his son. You can definitely do both, but obviously Logic isn't willing to. And like I said in my previous video about this, at this very moment in his career, life, and journey, rapping doesn't look like it's included in whatever vision he has for his life. Now, you got to keep in mind that Logic is sitting on music on top of music on top of music. This is something he talked about on the track Everybody Dies from Young Sinatra 4, when he said, "I just took a hiatus and wrote a novel, motherfucker. I got more verses than the Holy Bible, motherfucker, cause I'm sitting on 5 unreleased albums, greatest of all time, no lying, that's the outcome." I think it's crazy to assume that his fuel for rapping is empty all because he announced that he's retiring. What is he gonna do with all the material that he's sitting on? Just throw it out the window? Now, in the year 2003, Jay-Z dropped the Black album, which was promoted as his last album before he retires. When Jay was asked why he was retiring, he said a couple things like hip-hop is corny now. At that point, Jay-Z was pretty much bored with hip-hop. Yes, nowadays he's obviously 10 times more successful, he's a billionaire, but it's not like he wasn't really well off back then, so he was in a position where he could technically quit. The Black album being his goodbye project, of course, ended up not being true. 3 years after that, in 2006, he ended up dropping another album. The reasoning behind his so-called retirement doesn't really matter at the end of the day. All that matters is at the moment he supposedly quit, but he was inspired enough to come back with another one and continued his career just like nothing happened. Not only did that lead to Jay keeping his listeners invested in that album from start to finish, but there was a marketing aspect to it. Your goodbye album is supposed to be the one that sells the most or simply gets the most amount of press. That's why you would lead with, "Hey, I'm retiring, this is my last album." Jay-Z was 33 years old in 2003. Logic is 30 years old in 2020. Just like Jay being bored with hip-hop pushing him to the point of announcing his retirement, I think Logic being done might be very much real to the current version of him. What about the future version of Logic? You could only suppress the love you have for the craft for so long. Logic's reason for retiring is obviously a very personal one. That's why if I asked him right now whether or not he was actually retiring, I think the answer would be something along the lines of, yes, I'm definitely retiring. In 2017, right when Logic dropped his Everybody album, he did this genius interview where he said this.
"I mean, I gave everybody my whole life, and this was the album that I'm supposed to make. And so I'm not getting into it. I haven't even begun to get into that world."
Logic was asked whether or not the next album he was gonna drop after Everybody was gonna end up being his last one. As we all know, he ended up dropping 2 more albums after this, Young Sinatra 4 and Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
But it's like, I'm just done with albums, and it's gonna be the last one, so you motherfuckers better buy that shit and tune in and see what it's gonna be about, because it's gonna be very special. I'm gonna do something that has not been done in here.
As you can see, this ain't the first time this retirement thing has been in the conversation when it comes to Logic. He was clearly flirting with the idea back then, but the difference is he didn't promote any of the albums he dropped after that as the final one. Keep in mind, back then he didn't even have a baby Logic running around when he said that. Although dedicating his time and effort into being being a father is what pushed him to make this decision. It was clearly in the back of his mind then, and here we are today. Let me put it to you like this. When Logic says that he's retiring, I actually believe him, not because I don't think he's gonna make a comeback again, but because he thinks he's truly done. I think there's a very reasonable logic, no pun intended, behind his retirement. But let me also say this. I think he's gonna come back in a couple years down the road. I'm talking, if I had to guess, maybe 3 to 4 years into the future. I say that because I think he loves rapping way too much to truly retire. Sometime into the future, his son is of course gonna be a little bit older. So by that point, he's put in the time and effort into raising him just like a father is supposed to. I genuinely think that Logic will be making a comeback sometime in the future. With that being said, I don't think Logic is actually gonna retire, but I think he thinks that he's gonna retire. Like I said, at the moment, this is how he's feeling, but I personally don't see a reality where he doesn't pick up the microphone ever again. At the end of the day, the reason behind why he's retiring is a very respectable one. It's one of those reasons you can't help but salute. But at the end of the day, Logic dog, you will pick up that microphone sometime in the future again. Stop capping. But yeah, is Logic actually retiring? What do you think about this topic? Definitely let me know in the comment section below and let's have a discussion about this.